What if the most powerful gatekeepers, the very arbiters of public discourse, accidentally revealed the secret mechanisms of their own power by trying to hide something? What if their attempt to control the narrative became the story, backfiring with such spectacular force that it sent shockwaves through the entire political establishment? Yems Talarico, Stephen Colbert, and an interview that was booked, filmed, and then vanished, pulled, erased from the schedule. Most people blinked, maybe saw a headline, and moved on. But what if I told you that this single incident, this one act of editorial suppression, exposes a truth so fundamental to how power operates in America that once you see it, you can't unsee it? You see, they have a playbook, a meticulously crafted, generations-old playbook for managing dissent, for anointing successors, for shaping the acceptable boundaries of political conversation, and for a long time it worked. Beautifully, flawlessly. But then something shifted. And this pulled interview, this single, seemingly minor incident in a crowded Texas primary, isn't just about one politician. It's about the cracks in their system. It's about the raw, unfiltered struggle for who gets to define reality. By the time you finish this video, you won't just understand the hidden meaning behind the Talarico Colbert debacle. You will understand how power really works in Washington. You will recognize the subtle cues, the invisible strings, the manufactured consent that surrounds us every single day. And you will be equipped with the most powerful tool against it, informed skepticism. Let's rewind. The Texas 35th Congressional District primary. On one side, you have Jasmine Crockett, an incumbent, a rising star within the established Democratic Party, known for her sharp rhetoric and staunch loyalty to the party line. She's the kind of candidate the DNC loves, battle-tested, articulate, and reliably within the mainstream progressive lane. She represents a certain, comfortable continuity. On the other side, James Talarico. Younger, bolder, a state representative who's built a reputation as a fierce progressive advocate for public education, for workers' rights, for policies that push the envelope far beyond incremental change. He's the kind of progressive who excites the base, who talks about systemic shifts, not just tweaks. He's charismatic, undeniably intelligent, and he's not afraid to challenge the status quo, even within his own party. This isn't just a local race. Texas is a battleground. The 35th is a vital district. And the National Democratic Party, always acutely aware of its image and its hold on power, watches these primaries with hawk-like intensity. They want control. They want predictability. They want a narrative they can manage. And in this particular primary, the narrative they preferred, the candidate they tacitly or explicitly supported, was Jasmine Crockett. She was a safe bet. The known quantity, the one who wouldn't rock the boat too much. So when James Talarico, the upstart, the challenger, secured an interview with Stephen Colbert, the titan of late night, the intellectual's choice, the ultimate validator of progressive thought for millions, it was more than just a media hit. It was a potential game changer. It was the mainstream anointing of a challenger. It was a signal to the entire democratic ecosystem that Talarico was a serious contender, worthy of national attention, worthy of a national platform. Imagine the anticipation. The campaign team buzzing, the volunteers working overtime, knowing that a Colbert bump could propel Talarico into a national conversation, legitimizing his progressive vision to a broader, more establishment-aligned audience. This wasn't just about reaching voters. It was about reaching donors, influencers, and the DNC power brokers themselves. It was an opportunity to redefine the race, to elevate the stakes, and to force the establishment to reckon with a genuinely progressive voice. But then, nothing. The day came. The day went. The interview, it never aired. It vanished. Poof, gone. Without a trace on the late-night schedule. An entire segment, filmed, produced, ready for broadcast, simply disappeared. The official explanation, if one was even offered, was likely vague. Scheduling conflicts, editorial decisions, the kind of boilerplate responses designed to make you shrug, accept, and move on. And most people did. They accepted the surface explanation. They moved on. But if you're watching this, if you're already asking why, then you're starting to pull back the curtain. You're starting to see the hidden wires. Because in the world of high-stakes politics, in the world where narratives are meticulously crafted and controlled, nothing of this magnitude happens by accident. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a mistake. This was a decision. A deliberate, calculated act. And that decision, my friends, is where the real story begins. Because it wasn't just about silencing Talarico, it was about sending a message. A message about who gets to play, who gets a platform, and most importantly, Who gets to define what electable truly means? To understand the gravity of the Talarico interview being pulled, you first need to understand the historical pattern. The gatekeepers. For generations, they've stood at the thresholds of mainstream legitimacy. These aren't necessarily malicious individuals. They are often true believers in a certain order, a certain way of doing things. They believe they are protecting the party, protecting the institution, perhaps even protecting democracy itself from what they perceive as radicalism or unelectability. Think about the presidential primaries of recent memory. How certain candidates are elevated, praised, given prime time. How others, often those challenging the establishment's preferred narrative, are minimized, scrutinized with a different lens, or simply ignored. They are caricatured, dismissed as unelectable, or their ideas are portrayed as too extreme for the mainstream. This isn't just about endorsements. It's about the airtime, the tone of the coverage, the narrative that is built around them, and it extends beyond just media. We've seen time and again the internal mechanisms of political parties at work. The DNC, for example, has historically faced criticism for its role in shaping primaries, for nudging outcomes, for subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, favoring certain candidates over others. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a documented pattern of behavior aimed at ensuring what they believe is the strongest, most viable, and most controllable candidate emerges. So when a progressive firebrand like Talarico starts gaining traction, especially against an incumbent who fits the establishment mold, like Crockett, alarms start to ring. He's not just challenging a person. He's challenging an ideology, a strategy, a carefully constructed narrative of what the Democratic Party should be. He represents a potential disruption, and disruption, to those who value control, is the ultimate threat. A Colbert interview for Talarico wasn't just a segment. It was a potential inflection point. It was a moment where the gatekeepers risked losing control of the narrative. They risked legitimizing an ideology, a candidate, and a movement that they had, up until that point, sought to marginalize or ignore. They want to frame a conversation. They want to set the terms. They want you to believe a certain truth. And Talarico, on Colbert's stage, had the power to redefine that truth. So, why was it pulled? Let's talk about the unspoken reasons, the ones they'll never admit to. Was Talarico simply too progressive for the mainstream Colbert audience, or rather, for the sensibilities of the network executives, or perhaps even Colbert's own comfort zone, with a genuinely radical voice? Or was it more direct? Was there pressure, explicit or implicit, from DNC operatives, from powerful donors, from allies of Jasmine Crockett, who saw the potential for Talarico to gain too much momentum, too much national spotlight, too much legitimacy? The threat wasn't just Talarico winning. The threat was Talarico changing the conversation. The threat was him using that platform to articulate a progressive vision that exposed the inadequacies or compromises of the establishment. The threat was giving voice to millions of voters who feel unheard, unrepresented by the moderate wing of the party. A young, articulate progressive on a national stage, making a compelling case for radical change, can be deeply destabilizing to an establishment that prefers incrementalism. The calculation was simple, brutal, and utterly cynical. Silence is safer than amplification. Obscurity is preferable to anointing. If they could keep him off the national stage, if they could deny him that powerful platform, then perhaps, just perhaps, his challenge could be contained. This is the playbook. This is how power protects itself. It controls access. It controls visibility. It controls the narrative. It was booked. It was filmed. It was gone. A masterstroke of control, they thought. A surgical strike against an inconvenient truth. A quiet burial of a rising star. They expected silence. They expected compliance. They expected you to just forget. But then something went wrong. Horribly wrong for them. Because in the age of instant information, in the age of social media, in the age of a deeply cynical and distrustful public, silence is no longer golden. Silence sometimes is an amplifier. The very act of pulling that interview, of attempting to suppress Talarico, did precisely the opposite of what was intended. It catapulted him into a different kind of spotlight. It gave him a narrative even more powerful than a network TV appearance. The narrative of the silenced truth-teller, the underdog attacked by the powerful establishment. His campaign, astute and agile, immediately pivoted. They didn't just lament the cancellation, they weaponized it. The unaired interview became a rallying cry. It became a badge of honor. It signaled to his base, and to curious voters, that Talarico was so threatening to the status quo, so potent in his message that the gatekeepers had to resort to outright censorship. And this, my friends, resonated deeply with a public already weary of curated narratives, already skeptical of mainstream media, already distrustful of political institutions. They've stopped buying the illusion. They've stopped believing the accepted truth handed down from on high. They've developed a keen nose for manufactured consent. They expected obscurity. They got attention. They expected compliance. They sparked outrage. They expected silence. They ignited a roar. The attempt to diminish Talarico instead amplified his voice. The effort to control his message instead validated its potency. The decision to suppress him inadvertently created a legend. Overnight, the narrative shifted from a potential moment of national validation to a testament of defiance, from a forgotten segment to a symbolic battleground over media integrity and political autonomy. Talarico didn't need Colbert's couch anymore. The story of the polled interview became more compelling, more authentic, more viral than the interview itself ever could have been. And you, watching this, felt that familiar prickle of recognition, that gut feeling that something isn't right, that there's more to the story than the official line. You recognize the pattern, don't you? The quiet hand of power, trying to guide us, to control us, to make us think what they want us to think. This is the era where the power of the gatekeepers is waning. Not gone, but certainly diminished. Social media, independent journalists, and channels like this one have created alternative avenues for information and narrative construction. They tried to use the old playbook, but they forgot to play on a new field. A field where the crowd holds the power of the megaphone, not just the network executives. This reversal isn't just a political misstep, it's a profound revelation. It exposes the fragility of top-down control in a networked world. It reveals how easily a carefully constructed narrative can unravel when confronted with genuine grassroots energy and a public hungry for authentic stories, even or especially stories of suppression. This, my friends, brings us to the core thesis of this entire story, the grand illusion. The foundational truth about how power operates in modern society. Power isn't just about laws or money or military might. These are merely tools. The real power, the ultimate power, is about controlling belief. It's about controlling the narrative. It's about shaping consensus. It's about making you believe the story they want you to believe. Think about it. If you can control what people believe about the economy, you control their willingness to accept certain policies. If you can control what people believe about a political candidate, you control their vote. If you can control what people believe about what is possible or extreme, you control the very boundaries of political discourse. This is the essence of manufacturing consent. It's not coercion. It's persuasion, often subtle, often insidious, designed to create a reality that serves the interests of those in power. Mainstream media, including seemingly benign late-night shows, often act as crucial cogs in this machine. They don't just report the news, they frame it. They select which voices are amplified and which are muted. They define the acceptable range of opinions. They normalize certain ideas and marginalize others. They are the primary architects of the accepted truth that underpins the establishment. Consider the accepted truth we often hear. Only centrists can win national elections. Progressive policies are too expensive, radical. We must unite behind the establishment candidate, no matter what. These aren't objective facts, they are narratives. Powerful, pervasive narratives designed to limit our choices, to manage our expectations, and to ensure continuity for those who benefit from the existing order. When the system works, it's a masterstroke. It's an almost invisible hand, guiding the electorate, shaping public opinion, ensuring the perpetuation of power with minimal overt force. But when it fails, when a candidate or a movement manages to break through, or worse, when the attempt to control exposes the control itself, that's when cracks appear. That's when the illusion begins to shatter. The Talarico Colbert incident is not just about a pulled interview. It is a microcosm of this larger struggle for control over belief. It was an attempt by the gatekeepers to maintain their narrative, to protect their preferred candidate, to keep a progressive challenge confined to the fringes. It was a clear, unambiguous demonstration of the accepted truth being defended. But it backfired. Catastrophically. The very act of attempting to control the narrative revealed the existence of that control. It pulled back the curtain, even if just for a moment, and showed us the gears turning, the strings being pulled, the desperate efforts to maintain the illusion. It became a realignment of power dynamics, demonstrating that the old mechanisms are no longer foolproof. And this is why it matters, far beyond a single primary race. This is about who gets to define our reality, who gets to tell us what's possible, what's acceptable, what's true. It's a battle for the very soul of our public discourse. And the front line in this battle is increasingly moving from the ballot box to the battleground of belief itself. So, what's the antidote to this manufactured consent? What's the corrective force against the subtle manipulation of our beliefs? It's you. It's your skepticism. It's your refusal to passively accept the narratives handed down from on high. It's your willingness to ask why. Is a candidate's viability truly determined by a late-night couch, or by the authenticity of their message and the will of the people? Who gets to decide who is electable? The party establishment or the voters themselves? Is unity truly achieved by silencing dissent, or by embracing a broad spectrum of voices and ideas? They want you to be passive. They want you to consume. They want you to absorb their manufactured reality without question. But the moment you start asking why, the moment you start digging, the moment you start to compare the official story with the hidden mechanics, that's the moment their power begins to crumble. That's the moment you reclaim your agency. The Talarico incident serves as a powerful reminder that independent thinking, critical media literacy, and a healthy skepticism towards institutional narratives are not just academic exercises. They are the bedrock of a functioning democracy. They are the essential tools we need to navigate a world increasingly flooded with curated information. This is not just about a progressive challenger in Texas. This is about whether we, the people, will continue to be spectators in a political game where the rules are set and manipulated by a powerful few, or whether we will become active participants, demanding transparency, demanding authenticity, and challenging every attempt to manufacture our consent. The story of James Talarico and the pooled Colbert interview is a story of hope and defiance. It's a story that shows that even when the powerful attempt to silence a voice, the very act of that suppression can become an amplifier. It shows that the public, increasingly savvy and discerning, is developing a radar for authenticity and a disdain for manufactured narratives. This isn't just a tactical episode, it's a broad civilizational pivot. We are at a moment where the very nature of information and its control is undergoing a fundamental transformation. The old gatekeepers are struggling to adapt. The old playbooks are failing. And in that failure, there is immense opportunity for a more transparent, more democratic, and ultimately more authentic political future. Your role in this is crucial. Every time you question a headline, every time you dig deeper, every time you challenge and accept the truth, you are actively participating in this pivot. You are strengthening the democratic turn. You are ensuring that power truly rests where it belongs, not with the elites, not with the gatekeepers, but with an informed and skeptical citizenry. So, what did the polled James Talarico interview with Stephen Colbert really mean? It was never just about a single interview. It was a flashpoint. It was a momentary yet profound exposure of the hidden mechanisms of power. It showed us the playbook. It showed us the desperation. And it showed us the resilience of a public unwilling to be silenced. By now, you understand the deeper currents at play. You see beyond the headlines. You recognize the subtle power at work, trying to shape your beliefs, trying to manage your consent, and you know that the silence wasn't a defeat, it was a signal that the old ways are breaking. But the conversation doesn't end here. It begins with you. Drop a comment below. What do you think this means for the future of our political landscape? For media, for democracy itself? Have you seen similar patterns of manufactured consent in other areas? Your insights, your questions, your observations are vital. Stay curious. Keep questioning. Keep digging. Because that is how we take back the narrative. That is how we ensure power truly rests where it belongs. If you found this deep dive valuable, if you're ready to see behind the curtain more often, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Join our community as we continue to expose the real story. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, and never stop challenging the accepted truth.